Imagine a place where time does not exist. Close your eyes and try to visualize absolute nothingness. No stars, no atoms, no sound, not even the concept of black, because black requires light to define it. Before the pyramids rose from the sand, before the Nile carved its path through the desert, the universe was a terrifying, infinite ocean of silent, dark water. This wasn't just empty space. It was a chaotic, swirling void of non-existence called Nu. It was a watery grave waiting for a universe that hadn't been born yet. But deep within this suffocating abyss, a consciousness began to stir, a single spark trapped in the cold pressure of eternity. To understand how we emerged from this terrifying silence, we must unlock 4 doors. Door 1, the impossible spark. Door 2, the self-made God. Door 3, the cosmic separation. And Door 4, the tears of gold. Stay with us, because what lies behind Door 4 reveals the haunting truth about why humanity was created in the first place. In the middle of this dark, watery hell, something impossible happened. The chaos began to recede. The waters of Nu pulled back, revealing a single, jagged mound of earth rising from the depths. This was the Benben, the first solid ground in the history of existence, a lonely island in a sea of nothing. It was here, on this primordial hill, that the first heartbeat of the universe began to thump. Standing atop the mound was Atum. He wasn't born from a mother, and he wasn't fathered by a king. In a feat of sheer, terrifying will, he simply decided to exist. Imagine the mental energy required to pull yourself out of non-existence and into reality. Atum, who would later become the sun god Ra, stood alone. His skin shimmered with a golden hue, radiating a heat that the universe had never felt before. He was the complete one, the finisher of the world, a being of pure, blinding light standing in absolute darkness. But with existence came a heavy price: solitude. Picture yourself as the only conscious being in an infinite void. The silence is so loud it hummed against your eardrums. Atum was a god of immense power, holding the magic of Hehu within him. Yet he was paralyzed by loneliness. He realized that being the king of everything meant nothing if there was no one to rule, no one to speak to, no one to witness the glory of the light. So he did something desperate. He didn't build a world, he built a family. Using his own shadow, or in some whispers of the myth, his own fluids, he birthed 2 entities. He spat out Shu, the god of air, a living pillar of strength who would one day hold up the sky. Then came Tefnut, the goddess of moisture, with the head of a lioness and the grace of the morning dew. For the first time, the silence was broken. The universe had air to breathe and water to sustain life. But chaos is not easily tamed. The vast, dark waters of Nu were still unpredictable, and in the swirling confusion of creation, Shu and Tefnut drifted away. They were lost in the abyss, swallowed by the darkness that surrounded their father's tiny island of light. Atum was devastated. The panic of losing the only other things in existence was overwhelming. He couldn't move from the Benben without risking the stability of creation. So he did the unthinkable. He ripped out his own eye. This wasn't just an organ. It was a separate, sentient force of power known as the Eye of Ra. He hurled it into the darkness, commanding it to hunt down his children. For eons, Atum sat blind and weeping on the Benben, waiting in the dark. Finally, the Eye returned, guiding Shu and Tefnut back to the safety of the mound. The relief that washed over Atum was so profound, so physically shattering, that he began to weep. His tears, hot and heavy with divine emotion, fell from his face and struck the fertile mud of the benben. And this is where the magic happened. As those tears hit the dirt, they didn't just wet the ground, they mutated, they stood up, they took breath. From the sorrow and joy of a lonely god, the first human beings were born. We were not crafted from clay or carved from stone. In the Egyptian worldview, we are the physical manifestation of a god's emotional collapse. But as the family reunited, the universe was getting too crowded for the benben, and the next generation of gods was about to commit an act that would tear the sky from the earth forever. Imagine a romance so intense, so consuming, that it threatened to suffocate the entire universe before it even began. In the early days of this new world, there was no atmosphere, no horizon, and no space to breathe. There was only a suffocating embrace between two titans. Down below lay Geb, the god of the earth. Picture a man whose skin is made of craggy rock and fertile mud, his veins flowing with the water of the Nile, and his laughter rumbling deep underground to cause earthquakes. Above him, pressed tight against his body, was Nut, the goddess of the sky. She was a canvas of deep, velvet midnight, her skin sparkling with the light of 1 billion stars, her body an arch that touched the eastern and western horizons. They were locked in a perpetual, crushing union, brother and sister, earth and sky, refusing to let go. But in this claustrophobic love, there was no room for the wind to blow or for the sun to travel. The universe was stagnant, and Ra, the king of gods, looked down from his high throne and decided that for life to flourish, this heart had to be broken. This brings us to the most physically agonizing moment in Egyptian cosmology. Ra didn't just ask them to move. He commanded Shu, the god of air and the father of these two lovers, to tear them apart. Imagine standing there as Shu, a deity of immense strength, wedging himself between the crushing weight of the earth and the infinite expanse of the sky. The sound must have been deafening, the tectonic groaning of continents being ripped away from the stratosphere. Shu pushed upward with atomic force, his muscles straining against the gravity of affection. Inch by agonizing inch, he lifted Nut high above his head, creating the atmosphere, the very air that fills your lungs right now. Geb was left pinned to the ground, screaming for his lover, while Nut was vaulted into the heavens, forever out of reach. They could see each other, they could long for each other across the vast expanse of the cosmos, but they could never touch again. This separation created the world as we know it, the sky above, the earth below, and the air in between. But it was built on a foundation of absolute heartbreak. But while the separation was successful, Ra had missed a critical detail, a biological time bomb that was already ticking inside the goddess of the sky. Before Shu tore them apart, the union of earth and sky had been fruitful. Nut was already pregnant. High above the world, in the lonely vault of the heavens, she gave birth to 4 children who would redefine the concept of power and betrayal. First came Osiris, the future king, mummified and regal. Then came Isis, the mistress of magic and the throne. Then came Nephthys, the mysterious friend of the dead. And finally, tearing his way into the world, came Set, the god of chaos, war, and storms. These four siblings were not just gods. They were the players in a cosmic tragedy that was about to spill blood across the stars. The stage was set, the players were born, and the first murder in history was being plotted in the shadows. Imagine standing before a judge who doesn't look at your face, but weighs your very soul against a feather. This was the terrifying reality introduced by the firstborn of the sky, Osiris. He was the first king of Egypt, a god of such profound duality that he was the lord of both fertility and the dead. Picture a being wrapped in the white linen of a mummy, yet his skin is the color of fertile black earth and green vegetation, symbolizing that death is just the fuel for new life. He didn't just rule, he judged. In the silent hall of the underworld, your heart would be placed on a golden scale opposite the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth. If your heart was heavy with sin, you were devoured. If it was light, you lived forever. Beside him stood Isis, a goddess whose magic was so potent she could manipulate the very fabric of reality. She was the throne itself, the mother of gods, depicted with wings that could shield the entire world from harm. They were the perfect couple, in love even within the womb, representing the ultimate order of civilization. But shadows cannot exist without light, and the shadow of this perfect family was about to cast a long, red nightmare across the sands. Enter the god of the burning desert, Set. While Osiris was the cool, fertile earth, Set was the scorching wind that stripped flesh from bone. He was a paradox, a walking contradiction in the Egyptian pantheon. Look closely at his face. It's not a jackal, not an anteater, but a Typhonian beast, a creature that defies categorization, just like chaos itself. His skin was the color of red sand and blood, and he represented everything that terrified the ancient Egyptians: war, storms, and foreign destruction. But here is where the story gets complicated. You might think Set is the villain, the devil of this story, but the truth is far more disturbing. He was essential. Every night, as the sun god Ra traveled through the dangerous underworld, it was Set, the god of chaos, who stood at the bow of the boat. He was the only one strong enough to fight the great serpent Apep, the devourer of worlds. The universe needed a monster to kill a monster. Alongside him was Nephthys, the mistress of the house and friend of the dead, a goddess of silence and mourning who would eventually help piece together the broken body of the king. Together, these 9 deities, Ra, Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nut, Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys, formed the Ennead, the supreme council that held the cosmos in a fragile balance. Here is the haunting realization that changes everything. We spend our lives worshiping the light. We crave the order of Osiris, the safety of the law, and the predictability of the sunrise. We demonize the chaos of Set, pushing our anger, our aggression, and our shadow selves into the dark, pretending they don't exist. But in the ancient Egyptian mindset, the sun god himself, the source of all life, would die before morning without the monster standing guard on his boat. The villain was the only thing keeping the lights on. This forces us to ask a terrifying question about our own nature. If you were on that boat, sailing through the darkest hour of the night, who would you want standing next to you? The king who judges your sins, or the beast who fights for your life? Do you choose the moral purity that might let you die, or the dangerous chaos that ensures you survive? Most people lie and say they want the light. But when the serpent comes, everyone prays for the monster. This fragile piece in the Egyptian pantheon didn't last long. The jealousy of the desert wind was growing, and a coffin was being measured for the king. To witness the first murder in history and the resurrection that changed the world, you have to survive the next chapter.